welcome to Vision Sunday 2025. And whether you're visiting today or this is your church home, we want to say welcome to the best church in the whole wide world. I think we need to try that one more time. What do you think, eh? Okay, start again. Pretend I've just come up. Welcome to the best church in the whole wide world. Come on, there we go. My name is Gabe Phillips, and I get to be one of the pastors here at Life Changes, and it's such an incredible privilege to welcome you today to a really special day for us. It's a day where we look back and thank God for all His faithfulness, but in a sense, with fresh faith, look ahead and say, God, what potential do you have ahead of us that we want to run to, give our lives for, and as a community, lift our hearts a little bit higher than the norm, lift our hearts higher than the culture, lift our hearts higher than the Monday pressure, and say, God, we want to chart our course on what you are saying. Not what the world is saying, but what you are saying. And we want to encourage you today. Allow your heart to be caught up in the things that God is saying. I believe God is wanting to speak to us as a people, but also speak to you as individuals, as families, and actually He wants to change destinies here today. So I pray the prayer that I've been praying for us as a people would be this, that Samuel prayed, speak, Lord, your servants are listening. We want to hear what God is saying. So I want to tell you that 2025 is an incredible year, but another year that was incredible was 1969. A significant year, the 21st of July, summer of 69 was the anthem of the day, but it was this idea, and the 21st of July was the fateful day at the end of a decade that was entitled The Space Race. Neil Armstrong faithfully stepped out of Apollo 11 and Lunar Module 1 onto an area of the moon called the Sea of Tranquility, and he stepped there, he said those famous words, one big step for mankind, one giant leap. One big step for man, one giant leap for mankind. They're so famous, I can't even get them right. Sheesh. One step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And from then on, the rest, as they say, is history. But what is lesser known is the fact of his partner in crime, Buzz Aldrin, who was the second man to step on the moon, the cousin of Buzz Lightyear. I worked that joke with my 7-year-old, and she loved it. So if you laughed, your humor's on point, people. But as he was about to step onto the moon in that first moment, the story that's not told as flamboyantly or as out there in the world as we know it, is this idea that Buzz Aldrin, just before he stepped off, he took a deep breath and he took out his NASA-approved communion emblems. The emblems representing the body and the broken body of Jesus and the blood that poured out from His veins. He took those emblems, he took a moment and read from a 3x5 index card that read John chapter 15, apart from me you can do nothing. And he took communion just to remind his fragile heart that he knew that the whole world will always remember his name, this moment, this place where actually the relentless pursuit of that decade was we want to be the first people to go where no one else has ever been before. But he wanted to take a breath before he stepped into the unknown. That God had been there already. That actually he was about to step where no man had gone, but actually said, God, you've always been faithful. And your name is still the highest name. Your name is the only name that actually even in this moment, when he looked down on earth, he wanted to zoom out to remind himself that there was a God saying, actually, I have every one of your days and humanity days in the palm of my hand. And it's with that we want to remind our hearts that yes, we are wanting to hear God's voice for the here and now. But for us, our courage for the days ahead come from the fact that there's been a faithful God in the days behind. So with that, I want to help us before we reorientate our hearts on what is to come. And there are exciting things, believe me. I want to remind us of the faithfulness of God over the last year for us as a church. And I want to look at 2024 by the numbers. The first one is I want to show you the amount of people that come to our church across our 5 services on average every Sunday is 1,012 people every week. Incredible. Just shy of 1,000 adults. There's over 100 and something kids that come into our church. I think that's remarkable. It's remarkable. And if you did not know the way our church works, we don't meet in one big warehouse, in one meeting where it's a sea of people. We've chosen to meet in 3 meetings here on a Sunday, 2 at Century City, 5 different meetings with a smaller bit of expression, but this bigness in our hearts that believe we can change the world together. And it's remarkable for me when we see this thought, because rewind 20 years ago when the church was planted and this building was built here, Wally Gersmeyer, the founding pastor, wrote a letter to himself and to the church saying, this is what I dream in my heart. He says, I dream that this parking lot at 7A, Eckham and Wrights Road will be filled. And the building will be filled with people worshiping and congregants with eyes closed and hands raised, worshiping Jesus. Now, let me tell you what I love is the fact that every week in 2024 and 2025, Life Changes doesn't have just one parking lot full. They have 5 parking lots full. spilling out the roads down, causing traffic problems everywhere. I think it's remarkable. It is remarkable what God has done with us. But I want to keep reminding you that actually we are making space. We know services are full and parking is tricky and that, but I want to keep reminding our hearts to lift our eyes more than just a service. God is doing a miracle amongst us. And we're just scratching the surface of this. Why? Because I want to encourage you, if you call Life Changes home, don't see parking as a problem. See it as a promise fulfilled in God. And here's my encouragement to you. Vision Sunday 2025, start making a decision to come to church earlier and park further. How's that sound? I'm not going to come to church early to get a close parking space. No, I see the vision that actually I want to keep making space so others might be able to encounter the grace of God. That's what we do. We don't moan about problems. We actually celebrate them, say, Jesus, thank you, and we want to be part of the solution. This is what excites me when I look at these realities. And the number, 166 children on average, fill our kids' spaces. And that's going to exponentially grow and grow as we make space and dream for that future. But something that's so remarkable about that is when I arrived 15 years ago, there was a girl called Sarah Anderson who was 7 years old and was part of the Life Kids and the junior youth at that stage. And I had a bit of involvement in here and there. And now 15 years later, that girl, Sarah Anderson, is a 22-year-old who has been the Life Kids teacher to my 7-year-old for the past year. And she has become my 7-year-old's hero, someone who's imparted the gospel into her heart. And when I look at that, I go, God, there's something remarkable you're doing here. More than just a service, you're building a community, and generations are going to grow up here. And I want to tell you, maybe you've just been coming for a while. God is not just trying to give you a pep up on a Sunday for Monday. He's saying, I want to build generationally here with you. This is not just a crowd. This is something that's going to captivate generations, and your children and their children and their children's children. It's like that Russian doll thing. Just keeps going. We'll experience the grace of God because of His faithfulness. So I want to call ourselves this and remind us, but something for us is not just about a crowd gathering, and it's beautiful and it's exhilarating as people get saved and encounter Jesus. We also have 487 people serving in the life of the church. 487 people serving. Come on. We call this our dream team because it really is. People who are not just fulfilling a role, but people who've caught the dream of the heart of God and say, we want to lay down our lives so that we can see the glory of God made known in Cape Town. And I want to tell you right now that I would love that actually the reality for us is 487 people. Let's just do the math and say, cool, that's around just shy of 50% of the people who on average attend each week, which we know is probably more than that. But I'll tell you the dream for us is that we would have 1,102 people serving at Life Changes. Why? Because for us, the dream is not to entertain people who come on a Sunday or make a service nice for us as a family. That if we had the capacity, I would get every single person in this room right now and get you out of your seats and stand on the stage with me. And we'd have empty seats out there, and all of us would stand on stage, look out this venue and go, that is our congregation. Let me tell you right now, Life Change Church, at some level, we don't view you as our congregation. We see you as the dream team. The people who are facilitating the life of God to a nation and a city who are desperately in need of the gospel. So for us, it's not about pulling off services. That's too low. We really believe that actually we are called to leverage our gifts, our time, our talents, so we can do damage to the kingdom of darkness. I pray, maybe I'll pray for you, and maybe you can pray this yourself, is that you would start to refuse to do spectator Christianity in 2025. You see, the devil longs to keep you on the sidelines when you are meant to be in the game. Don't settle for anything less. Don't settle for anything less when God says, actually, I want you in the game to see my kingdom come. Thirdly, I want to tell you, we've had incredible big invite moments where we, over the past year, have said, hey, church, why don't you pray and see who will invite? And these numbers are remarkable. Over 2,000 people at Easter filled our services. Over 1,700 at carols. 1,200 at Christmas over just 4 services. We were adding extra services. But my favorite moment of all of these moments was after one of these exhilarating days where the venue was pumping and full across all our services. One of the volunteers who works at the back at the media said to me his best moment of the day. And I thought, what is he going to say? The worship, the preaching, all of those were wonderful. He said, no, was the fact as the room got fuller, I saw people who I know consider this home gave up their seats so visitors could take their seats. And I was just like, wow. There was just someone at the back saying, I was like, wow, that's the church I want to be a part of. Not a church fighting for their seat, but a church fighting for souls. Saying it's more than seating capacity. It's actually our ability to, we're going to make space. We're going to make space at our own expense. And I love that. I love the fact there were individuals who booked out entire rows for their families. I met one guy, and he was a Durbanite. And he said, let me introduce you to my family. And I think I met about 25 pariachis in about 2 minutes. God bless the pariachis because they came in force. But let me tell you what is incredible is I know that guy had been praying for about a month that some of that family would come to those services. He'd been praying, God, would they come and would you do something? And I'm going, Jesus, thank you that I'm part of a church full of heroes who say we're going to leverage our comfort, leverage our reputation, and we're going to extend invites because the kingdom of God has gripped our hearts. This is the church you belong to. We have 528 people in life groups, 46 life groups covering over 22 suburbs in Cape Town. Is that not remarkable? That Life Changers doesn't just meet to 2 locations on a Sunday, but meets over 46 different homes in the week and in the moments during in the Monday to Friday rhythm of life across our city. The Church of Jesus Christ is gathering. Roads are being filled with cars and homes are being filled and cultures are being filled with redemption stories and reconciliation is happening and discipleship is happening and it's exhilarating. And I want to ask at this moment, if you're a life group leader here today or if you're a life group leader who's about to start leading a life group, can you stand to your feet very quickly? There are a whole bunch of others who come to 10:30 and at Century City, but can we give these amazing heroes a round of applause? Incredible. That's Kevin and Pauline, who are starting a life group in the next week or so. Give us a wave. Kevin and Pauline, come on. And you've got everyone in between, and you've got Alan and Lynn who've been leading for years, but just with fresh faith, every year, fresh faith to love Jesus' people. And whether they're starting or been doing it for a number of years, I thank God we've got heroes who say, actually, we're going to open up our homes. I want you to be praying for these people. If you're not part of a life group, go chat to them afterwards, straight away. You're missing out on biblical Christianity if you're not part of a life group. Go and sign up at our Next Steps desk. But these are heroes, and you want to be involved in their lives. Why don't you take your seats, guys? I tell you the dream that's in my heart and our hearts as a leadership team is that we're going to have, I think, over 50 new life groups this year. Why? Because the goal is not just to try and get everyone at Life Change into a life group. These are missional outposts. There was a man who planted a church in Seattle, Washington over 3 decades ago, and he was a young, fresh-faced preacher, and thousands of people flooded, young people who were rebellious, who were with anarchy in their hearts, who were left-wing liberals to the nth degree. They encountered the grace of Jesus as he preached the gospel, and thousands started to cram into the buildings. But then the preacher realized that he had a problem. There was no one to disciple all these youngsters. So he made call after call from out of state to any person he once knew who had a heart for Jesus. And he convinced older people to move their jobs, relocate their homes, to come to Seattle, find new work with one purpose: come and help me disciple these young people. And a lot of them came to the church and they walked in, they said to him, we're here not because we like the music style, it's very different and not our style. They said, we don't even like the aesthetics of the building, it's different to us. But they said, but we've been captivated by the mission. And a whole bunch of people came and said they saw the need and they said it's time for moms and dads to step up and open their homes. And I see moms and dads, not just they're based on age, but actually saying, I see that they're sheep without a shepherd and I want to shepherd them. And I believe there are many people in this room who've put it on the back burner. I'll tell you, time to pick up this reality. We're called to the mission of God. We're going to set up homes all around our city, and maybe your home can be used for the glory of God. Maybe your home can see revival bursting out from it, can see the redemption of Jesus start to be interwoven to people's hearts. I believe God is going to do miracles this year. It's so exciting to be part of Life Changes. There's this incredible ministry called Recovery. Anyone who knows Recovery in our church, come on. And if you don't know what Recovery is, it's a group that meets on Monday nights, people who are seeking freedom and support in their battle against addiction in its various forms. And we've seen testimony after testimony of the gospel-powered work. We've seen identities restored, families restored, purposes and futures restored in this building. Over 50 people meeting on a Monday night on average. 179 new people from just our community have walked these doors saying, I've heard that this is a place that might be able to help me. They've walked in here saying, I'm desperate, I've got nowhere else to go. My family don't want to have involved with me. I have no more ability in myself, but I've heard there's a people who will leverage their stories for the grace of Jesus. How many coffees made for them? How many meals just to facilitate the life of God so people can get joined to community, encounter the gospel, and where they have been walking bent over and racked by the brokenness of sin, start to walk straight into the purpose of God. I see that hand. That's a testimony of God's life. And there's many, many, many of those in this room already here today. But we believe that we are here to answer the question our city are desperate for. Who can help me? Life Changes Church, with the Spirit of God inside them, can help. And this is the amazing people called Recovery. So I want to say, Jacques and Louise and the amazing Recovery team are doing incredibly well. And this year, we are going to see freedom breakouts in and through our church like never before. Freedom, you ain't seen nothing yet. I really believe it's coming to our church and the city. On a Friday night, we have youth. We have plus minus 83 teenagers. Come on. 183 kids went away on camp. Over 117,000 rand was raised by us as Life Changers to make sure we get these two kids to camp. Some who could not afford it, some who are in broken homes, to get them to encounter the gospel. There's story after story we can tell, but for time's sake, I want to tell you, God is doing something with this next generation. He's taking a broken and fatherless generation and he's making them the revival generation. And where the world is writing them off with statistics and selfish and this, I tell you, no, to Jesus Christ says, do you see what I see? Do you see what I see? Speaking about the next generation, we've got a ministry called Young Adults. And I don't have stats to tell you because this is something that's starting brand new from the ground roots up. We have a whole group of 18 to 28-year-olds in our church who are going to start gathering in different moments of connection and worship and mission, and God is going to do something incredible. We've got a few dates that I'd love to put up behind you. If you're a young adult, if you're between the ages of 18 to 28, this is what is happening. But this is so exciting. For us, this is not just another ministry. This is a prophetic word taking flesh. 20 years ago, a lady called Kerry Southey prophesied into Life Change Church when majority of us weren't here. And a church that was in a predominant age bracket said, actually, there's going to be a time that'll come when Life Change Church will be filled with hundreds upon hundreds of young adults who will have a profound impact and influential reality on the city of Cape Town. At that stage, there were no young adults. But God has put flesh to that word. And we are seeing the start of this movement that's starting. And I believe God is going to do something remarkable with this age group. So keep an eye on that. It's so exciting what God is doing. Online, very quickly, we have over 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, thousands of followers on social media platforms. And we believe we're called to change the world. We're already blessing and serving many people in our online community in far-flung places around the globe. But we're praying for more creative ways to get the gospel and resources out to the world through us. Who said nothing good could ever come from Tableview? I tell you, I believe we're going to have resources that's going to bless this world, written by many of you, spoken by many of you, shaped by us as a people. God, we're saying, God, give us creative strategy that we would see what you see. We believe that in this venue, in the 5 venues that meet across our city on a Sunday, we have enough resources to change the world. God wants to use you and I for it. I want to tell you about the average monthly givers. When we talk about finance, for us, I'm not telling you amounts. I'm telling you about amounts of people who are giving consistently and regularly. And there are over 387 people who contribute monthly, on average, monthly, financially, to the mission that God has called us on. I think that's remarkable. Just under 300 via EFT. We've got 92 SNAP scanners, and that doesn't include, that stat there was the best we could do, because it doesn't include those who faithfully give via cash and the famous yellow buckets. And we do know that. We thank God for the people who give financially in that way, faithfully. And it doesn't include the more sporadic giving that comes in weekly increments. We know there are a lot of people who also, because of their job dynamics, give weekly. And it's hard for us to track the numbers, but we're just saying, God, we thank you. It's not about us looking over numbers. It's us just saying, Jesus, thank you that you've knitted our hearts with people who have bought in, not just with their hands raised, but actually their wallets extended to the kingdom of God. And I want to tell you that this is for us, that every rand given is incredibly precious to us. It's deliberate and we have deliberate and faithful oversight of it. We're so careful and prayerful over that. But your giving has made services run. It's employed staff. It's blessed families in need, helped and supported church plants around the world. And I want to keep reminding us that we're not called to equal amounts, but we're called to equal sacrifice. And that's why for us, we're not putting a big amount shown here, because that can wow us. Because, hey, look what God's doing. But we are saying, actually, for us, the number that compels us is not the amounts that they're given, but the amounts of people they're giving. Because that means it's a discipleship question. It's no longer about us trying to build fancy buildings. No, that's the lowest thing for us. We're saying we want the gospel to go. And it first needs to go into our hearts and say, Jesus, if this is my church, I'm going to give towards and mobilizing mission through this church. That exhilarates us, and that gets us excited. We want to change the world. But we don't want to do it with a big check that comes from America. Although if a big check comes from America, we'll receive it by faith. But I do tell you, we love the fact that we get to partner with faith-filled believers in Cape Town who've had a glimpse of Jesus and are not partnering together in every way. And we are partnering in every single way to say, Jesus in Cape Town as is in heaven. Do it through me. Now, I believe this year, I prophetically declare, as we pursue Christ and His mission relentlessly, there's going to be a flow of wealth coming to and through the church like we've never seen before. I want to say the prophetically. I felt that you add that prophetically. I believe this year that Life Change Church has been a faithful steward of the finances God has given her. And I believe God is going to give the wealth of the unrighteous is going to be stored up for the righteous and going to be mobilized to mission like we've never seen before. And maybe God's going to use you to start that. Maybe God's going to use you to kickstart it with your giving. It's not about equal amounts, it's equal sacrifice. Jesus, I see the price, I'm going to give towards it. Now for us, all these numbers inspire us and encourage us no end. But I just want to give us 2 more numbers that captivate us even more. The first one is this number on the screen, 4.773 million people who live in Cape Town. 4.773 million people. Now, when you see the numbers, 1,000 people, this numbers of so this, that, maybe that expels your heart and say, wow, God, you're doing something remarkable. But when I see that number, it also almost shrinks it down, going, God, sheesh, there's so much more work to be done. I remember during COVID years when we were fearful, we had people online and no one filling the building, and my wife and I were driving one day and had a moment of nervousness, and I said to her, what if nobody comes back to church? What if they really enjoy the online space so much that we open the doors and no one's there? And my wife with faith said something so profound. She said, well, there's over 4 million people in Cape Town. We'll just go reach a whole bunch more. And I'm so grateful to God that you came back. Because I want to do this with my friends. But I think the mission is so big that actually we're not here to keep people. We're here to reach people. And if our lives are trying to keep people, you'll live in a small Christianity that's all about you. But we sang today, it's all about you, Jesus. And when we lift our eyes a little bit higher from the mundane, we see a vision that should captivate our Mondays, should captivate our wallets, should captivate everything about us, our time, our talents and treasures, and say, all for your kingdom, Jesus, we must go. We've got a gospel to preach. We've got a kingdom to declare. We've got broken hearts to bind up. God, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. It's an impossible number. But there's one last number that wasn't impossible. It is this number on the screen, 384,401 kilometers. That's the distance from the earth to the moon. And for decades upon decades upon decades, people said impossible. Endless amounts of money were spent to try and cross that great divide until 1969. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and one other chap that I cannot remember his name steps into the great unknown when the relentless pursuit found its end. But I want to keep reminding us that Jesus came and crossed every great chasm to get to us, to you and I. Not for us to sit in neat, tidy Sunday meetings, but to say, actually, will the mission of Jesus burn our hearts so much? And God, would you do something through me in my generation that we'll see the glory of God made known? I tell you lastly, in Ephesians, the book, the script writer says, the world, the church is not peripheral to the world. The world is peripheral to the church. I declare to you today that the church of Jesus Christ is still the plan A of Jesus. And he says, now through the church, the manifold wisdom of God will be made known. We are relentlessly pursuing Jesus, and we have courage for our future because we know he's been so faithful behind. Why would he fail us now?